السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين وتابعيهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، إن شاء الله, today it is the 27th. Today is the 27th of Dhul Qa'dah, 27th of Dhul Qa'dah, and matching 1442, and this matches the 7th or the 6th. The 6th. So today is the 26th of Dhul Qa'dah, and it matches the 6th of July 2021. And I remind you again, although yesterday I was very explicit, or the day before I was very explicit about it, but then still I had a question from one of our attendees. I was saying that basically we are expecting the first of Dhul Hijjah to be on Sunday, inshallah ta'ala. The first of Dhul Hijjah, the first day of Dhul Hijjah, inshallah, hopefully it will be Sunday. The information that is available to us now is that on Saturday, around 1:15 Universal Time, the new moon is born, and it can be sighted with optical aid in the east. It can be sighted with optical aid also in the United States, and also maybe they may be able to see it with the naked eyes in the States. And then even more to the Pacific, Polynesian islands, I think they can see it with the naked eyes. So it is expected that they will be able to sight it with optical aid, and hopefully Sunday will be the first, inshallah ta'ala. The calendar in Arabia shows that this Friday that's coming is the 29th, right? So Allah knows, I don't know if they are going to depend on that, or they will just sight the new moon both on Friday and on Saturday, right? So anyhow, if they didn't see it Friday, which is they won't be seeing it, so they will see it on Saturday with optical aid. If not, it's going to be the 30th there. So Sunday will be the first, inshallah. And as you know, Eid al-Adha, most or many people, they just follow the Hajj, right? So the day of Arafah there matches the day of Arafah here, although there is a valid difference of opinion that is there between the scholars. So it is expected that there may be difference. We'll have 2 different days of Dhul Hijjah, 10th of Dhul Hijjah, 2 different days of the day of Arafah. But Allah al-Musta'an, we got used to that. But anyhow, this is more than likely what is going to be, that Sunday is the first. And therefore, Eid this way, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah will fall on Tuesday, and that matches the 20th of July, inshallah ta'ala, right? So the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are the best days of the year, and it is recommended to do a lot of good deeds in there. Alhamdulillah, this is the next big season after Ramadan, right? After Ramadan, we have those 10 days that are coming. The days of Hajj, the days of the day of Arafah, the days of dhikr, fasting, and sadaqah, and all kinds of good deeds. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend our lives to attend those days and to make us from those who use them in the best way. Today we are doing chapter 54 of the Soul's Guide, or the Guide of the souls to the land of joys, right? Or the soul's cameleer to the land of cheer, right? So the land of happiness, paradise. Chapter 54 deals with في ذكر المادة التي خلق منها الحور العين, from the material, the substance from which al-hur al-ain, the women of paradise, are made of, are created of. وما ذكر فيها من الآثار, and what is mentioned regarding this of the reports. وذكر صفاتهن, mentioning their description. ومعرفتهن اليوم بأزواجهن, ذكر صفاتهن ومعرفتهن اليوم بأزواجهن, mentioning their qualities and that they recognize today already, they recognize their spouses, their husbands. طيب. So this is what he mentions here. This is the chapter, and I'm going to actually skim through the chapter. The reason being is that mostly the narrations, whether they are hadith or they are reports from Sahaba and Tabi'een, they are not that strong. So Allah knows best what they are made of, but I will mention what these narrations say, except that, as I told you, much of these are not that strong in terms of chain, in terms of report. And there is one narration here, doesn't talk exactly about where they are created from or what they are created from, but it talks about them knowing their husbands, today knowing their husbands, right? And that hadith is authenticated by Sheikh Al-Albani. Others have different views, but inshallah I will mention it. طيب. So he mentions one narration that says that Al-Hur al-Ain are created from saffron, az-za'faran, right? Now once again, is not an authentic report. Even the Shaykh Al-Imam Ibn Qayyim, he mentions what he did in this book. He crammed all kinds of different reports, right? Even if they are weak, he put them there, and he would say that this is not strong, this is weak, there is this narrator who didn't, is not trustworthy, there is this break in the chain here. That's what he will do. So it is kind of tedious sometimes to go through it. We're trying to do the mukhtasar, and now I'm doing the mukhtasar of the mukhtasar. I'm just skimming through, right? So that's what we will do, right? And another report says, that one is actually a hadith, but it's not authentic. He says, تفرد به علي بن الحسن بن هارون. This narrator, he single-handedly narrated this narration, and it's not narrated except with this chain, so it's not acceptable. There is one narration from Abu Salama ibn Abd al-Rahman, and he says that in paradise there is a bride that neither Adam nor Eve gave birth to, right? But rather she is created from saffron. Az-za'faran, as you know, at a certain point in time, it was a very precious substance, and still today, but it looks like before even it had more, still continues till today. It has a nice smell, it has a good color and the likes of that, right? So Allah knows if that is the case or not. This narration here is mentioned from two companions and two from the second generation of Muslims, right? But even those reports are not that strong, right? Anyways, he says they are from the ones that are especially created in paradise. They are not given birth to, no fathers or mothers, okay? One narration says if Hawra, one of these women of paradise, she would spit in 7 seas, then those seas, they will become very fresh and very عذب يعني. Very good, right? Tasty, because of the freshness and the goodness of her mouth, right? Of her mouth. And once again, it mentions that they are created from saffron. Now he says, once again, the narration is not that strong. He says, if this إذا كانت هذه الخلقة الآدمية, if this creation, that is the women of this dunya, coming from Adam, the descendants of Adam, التي هي أحسن الصور وأجملها, which is the best of the images, the most beautiful of the images, مادتها من تراب, the material, the substance of it is actually of dust. وجاءت الصور من أحسن الصور. And the image came from the most beautiful, right, of images. فما الظن بصورة مخلوقة من مادة الزعفران الذي هناك. So what do you think about the image of someone who's created from the material of الزعفران, not dust, الزعفران, saffron. And then it is not this earthly saffron, it's the paradise saffron. Once again, there is nothing in paradise of this worldly life except the names. This is a statement, authentic statement of Abdullah bin Abbas, and it is true. So you hear khamr, alcohol, same name used here and in paradise. Asal, honey, milk, right? But water. But then those names, they only match in the names, but the reality of it is quite different. What is in paradise is far much more. Even the fruits, and this meaning has been repeated many times. If you hear rumman, if you hear, at-talh, you hear, whatever, the date palms or palm trees and dates. This is all just similarities in the title or the name. But the reality, what's in paradise, is not even comparable to what we have here. Also, he mentions another narration, which is also a weak narration, it's not strong. It says that a light will be shining in paradise. So they raise up their heads to that light. So they find that she's a hawra, one of the women of paradise. She just opened up her mouth. ثغر حوراء. ضحكت في وجه زوجها. She laughed in the face of her husband. So you have this shiny light coming out. And he mentions other narrations. We got some authentic ones similar, like he's saying here, one narration says, if a hand of one of the hands of the women of paradise will be dangling, will be down in this worldly life, then the earth would light up. We had an authentic narration which was saying if a woman from the women of paradise just looked, then this world will light up. And that was an authentic narration. So this one is similar. Now this next narration is authenticated by the Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, and it shows that those Hur al-Ain, the women of paradise, they already recognize and know their husbands. Right? This narration is in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, the Sunnah of Imam At-Tirmidhi. It says, لا تؤذي امرأة, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said from Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا تؤذي امرأة زوجها في الدنيا. There is no wife who hurts her husband in this worldly life, إلا قالت زوجته من الحور العين, except that his wife from الحور العين, the women of paradise, will say, لا تؤذيه قاتلك الله. Do not harm him. Do not hurt him. May Allah fight you. فإنما هو عندك دخيل. He is only with you is dakhil. Dakhil, like a visitor, right? It could be used in the sense of an intruder too. Yani someone who just intrudes, yani you're not invited, why are you here? Right? So she's saying he's only like a visitor visiting with you. He doesn't belong here, right? يوشك أن يفارقك إلينا. He is about to depart from you to us, right? Do not harm him, because it's like saying he's not yours, he's ours, right? Do not harm him. It's only going to be some time and then he's coming to us. Do not hurt him, right? So those women of paradise, they already know and recognize their husbands here, right? طيب. And this is once again authenticated by Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah. And there are similar narrations, and there are other narrations just talking about how beautiful they are, how good they are, but the narrations are not that strong, and they are from, as I said, second generation of Muslims and tabi'un, and also from Sahaba, but they're not that strong, right? طيب. The next chapter 55, في ذكر نكاح أهل الجنة ووطئهم والتذاذهم بذلك أكمل لذة ونزاهة ذلك عن المذي والمني والضعف وأنه لا يوجب غسلا, mentioning the intercourse of the people of paradise and how they enjoy that the most type of joy, and that this is free, this mating or intercourse is free from madhi or madhi, which is the preseminal fluid, wal mani, the semen, wal da'f, the weakness that happens after, and that it does not necessitate bathing, right? The fact that it does not necessitate taking a bath, like in this dunya. He mentions now the ahadith. He will remind us of some hadith that have passed before. One of them from yesterday, when the companion radiyallahu anhu, he asked, do we reach our wives in paradise, meaning intercourse? So he said the man will be able to have that, he will be reaching up to 100 virgins. And there is the hadith of Abi Musa, agreed upon, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, that the believer in paradise will have a tent made of one hollow pearl. The length of it is 60 miles, and he has families in there and in the different sides, and he will circle them, he will go around them. And one narration mentions that they do not even see, those families, they don't see each other. There's another narration which was mentioned yesterday also, that the believer will be given in paradise the strength of such and such, the power of having intercourse, in the Sunan of At-Tirmidhi. And Sheikh yesterday, he explained, either he can have the power of 100, up to 100, or he has 100, right? And he mentioned 100 wives, and he mentioned that some narrations mention 2 wives, so the rest will be just extra, right? Or that he will have the power to reach up to 100. But then he definitely also says that from this hadith that was mentioned, the hadith of the hollow pearl, family everywhere, they don't see each other, this means that he has more than just 2 wives, right? Abu Umama, he mentioned that Rasulullah SAW was asked عليه الصلاة والسلام أيجامع أهل الجنة قال دحما دحما ولكن لا مني ولا منية. He was asked, do the people of paradise have intercourse? And he said, yes, strongly, but then no semen and no death. Right? So this no semen, no death is not really that strong. The first part, they differ about the authenticity, but Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, he authenticates this narration, Dahman, that they will be able to strongly have that. He mentions similar narrations, and he mentions also the ayah from Surah Yasin, إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. That the people of paradise surely today they are busying themselves, busy with enjoyment. And part of that enjoyment is this, according to a number of companions, that they will have this enjoyment with different versions. And here, this part, I decided that we should translate it. So he was saying that this enjoyment that the men and the women will have in paradise, and from the most enjoyments that destroy the men and the women even at a young age, unfortunately, is this free mixing between men and women, males and females, leading to having illicit and prohibited sex, which is a crime, which is a big sin, one of the major sins in Islam. It's not allowed. Muslims are only allowed to mate with their wives that they took with the word of Allah, right? What that is through marriage, right? That's how Muslims and how Islam is, right? So those who fall into sin, waliyadu billah, whatever they will, whatever violations they will do here, they will be getting less, either punishment in the fire first, waliyadu billah, or not getting as much in paradise. Right? So he says here, أكمل الناس فيه وأصونهم لنفسه في هذه الدار عن الحرام. The believer who will be most perfect amongst the people in terms of enjoying this pleasure, the pleasure of intercourse, is the one who protects himself in this worldly life from prohibitions, from haram. فكما أن من شرب الخمر في الدنيا لم يشربها في الآخرة. Exactly like the one who drinks alcohol in this worldly life, he will not drink it in paradise في الآخرة. ومن لبس الحرير في الدنيا لم يلبسه في الآخرة. And the one who wore silk in this worldly life, he will not wear it in the next life. ومن أكل في صحاف الذهب والفضة في الدنيا لم يأكل فيها في الآخرة. And the one who eats in the plates, utensils of gold and silver, he will not, in this dunya, he will not eat in them in the next life, right? فمن استوفى طيباته ولذاته وأذهبها في هذه الدار حرمها هناك. So the one who took his full pleasure from these enjoyments and the good feelings in this life, and he made them go away, أذهبها. He made them go away. He wasted them by using them in this worldly life in haram. Then he will be prohibited from them, from these enjoyments there in the next life. كما نعى سبحانه على من أذهب طيباته في الدنيا واستمتع بها. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala censored those who made their goodness go away. They wasted these good, pure things. They wasted them in this worldly life and enjoyed them here. Like the unbelievers, they have nothing called halal or haram. In terms of food, drink, or women and intercourse, they don't care. They don't care. So they made them go away, yani, by violating Allah's prohibitions here. They actually are, yani, if you look at it, the one who's holding himself from getting involved in these prohibitions, he is viewed as someone who's maybe strict, or someone who's some might even go to the point of, what's wrong with you? You're 15, or you're 18 and 17. You don't have a girlfriend. You don't have, what's going on? What's wrong with you, right? They might even think as such when they are the ones who have those twisted minds. They are the ones who are violating the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated for this worldly life. And He is the creator of this worldly life. He is the creator of the next life. Right? This is why he says, وَلِهَذَا كَانَ الصَّحَابَ وَمَنْ تَبِعَهُمْ يَخَافُونَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ أَشَدَّ الْخَوْفِ. This is why the companions and those who followed them from the tabi'een, they used to be afraid from this, the most severe fear, to a point that they will not enjoy, they will choose to stay away from enjoying something that is halal, right? Although, of course, it is allowed to use whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for us. Allah allowed it, so it is okay. But they used to shy away so that they are afraid, because they have high or heightened fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he mentions a narration that Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu, he was seen by Umar radiallahu anhu, and he has meat that he bought. Jabir, he bought. So he bought it for his family by 1 dirham, right? So he said, what is this? He said, meat I bought for my family with 1 dirham. So he said, أَوَ كُلَّمَا اشْتَهَى أَحَدُكُمْ شَيْئًا اشْتَرَاهُ. Is it every time one of you desires something, he just goes and buys it? كُلَّمَا اشْتَهَيْتَ اشْتَرَيْتَ. Right? Every time you desire something, you just go and buy. It rhymes in Arabic, it doesn't in English. اشتهى, اشترى, right? اشتهى, desire, اشترى, bought, right? Then he mentions the ayah, Surah Al-Ahqaf, ayah number 20, which, really this ayah, inshallah, as the scholars highlighted, is actually regarding the disbelievers, the kuffar, not regarding the Muslims. But as I said, this heightened fear, and this narration is not that strong, by the way, from Umar, this one about buying the meat. The ayah from Surah Al-Ahqaf, it says, أَذْهَبْتُمْ طَيِّبَاتِكُمْ فِي حَيَاتِكُمُ الدُّنْيَا وَاسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِهَا. That you made the good things go away. Your good things, you made them go away in this worldly life, and you fully enjoyed them. Right? Don't overly enjoy everything in this worldly life. Leave something for the akhirah, right? So, once again, if what you are enjoying is halal, then it is allowed, right? And we have a number of قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ. We have a number of ayat and ahadith about this, that what is allowed is just allowed. But then even what is allowed, you don't indulge yourself in it to great lengths and extents where you everything you enjoy, you were supposed to be someone who's shying away from the worldly pleasures. Leave some for the next life, right? And there are reports, even some of them authentic reports, showing how the person is should be what they call ascetic or asceticism, zuhd, to stay away from much of the worldly pleasures. So the one who fully, he says, the one who fully enjoys everything here, he doesn't leave anyone one desired except he fulfills, right? And he may be prevented from that in the next life, or he might not be prevented completely, but he will be prevented from the perfect enjoyment there, because he has expanded on doing this in this worldly life. Now, if someone is enjoying that in a haram way and he dies without repentance, then really there is a problem in there. He says, فلا يجعل الله لذة من وقع في معاصيه ومحارمه كلذة من ترك شهوته لله أبدا. He said that Allah does not make the enjoyment of the one who fell into prohibitions, who fell into disobediences and prohibitions. He will not make his enjoyment like the enjoyment of the one who left his desire for the sake of Allah. That will not happen, right? طيب. Now chapter 56 في ذكر اختلاف الناس هل في الجنة حمل وولادة أم لا. This chapter 56 mentioning the difference of the people, difference of opinion between the scholars. هل في الجنة حمل وولادة, is there in paradise pregnancy and giving birth أم لا, or not? He said اختلف أهل العلم في هذا. The people of knowledge, they differed regarding this. فقال بعضهم, some of them said في الجنة جماع ولا يكون ولد. There is intercourse but there is no children, no giving birth. There is a hadith here which scholars differ about its authenticity. It's narrated by Imam Ahmad, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Ibn Hibban, and Abi Sa'id. It is authenticated by Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah. This hadith, it says that Rasulullah ﷺ said, المؤمن إذا اشتهى الولد في الجنة. The believer, if he desired the child in paradise, كان حمله ووضعه وسنه في ساعة واحدة كما يشتهي. Then the pregnancy, his pregnancy and delivery and his age, his growing to the desirable age, right? في ساعة واحدة, in one period of time, كما يشتهي, as he desires, right? So, basically, this narration is saying, if the believer desires a child in paradise, it happens, but then it happens quickly, right? The pregnancy, the delivery, and him growing to desired age is done in ساعة واحدة. Literally, if we translate, it's just 1 hour, but it's like in a period of time. It's not like 9 months and all of that is not there. So that is one narration. There is another narration which is a weak narration. This one is a weak narration. But some scholars, they chose it. And it is a long one, not mentioning all of it, but then that narration, it says, وَلَنَا فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ أَوْ مِنْهُنَّ صَالِحَاتٌ. We have spouses in paradise and righteous women. So he answered, الصالحات للصالحين. The righteous women will be for the righteous men. تلذون بهن مثل لذاتكم في الدنيا ويلذذن بكم غير أن لا توالد. This narration says, so these, you will have those spouses there. You enjoy them like you used to enjoy them in this worldly life. They also enjoy you, right? It's just that there is no tawalud, no giving birth, right? So he says this is an explicit hadith negating, saying there is no delivery in paradise, giving birth. And him, he's saying here, إذا اشتهى معلق بالشرط, right? The first narration that I mentioned, the believer if he desired a child. Either if he desired a child, right? So he says, this other narration says no giving birth. And that one is saying if the believer desired the child. So saying if does not necessarily mean that the believer will desire a child. It says if he desired, and he may not desire a child, right? So this condition, if then, right? It's not necessarily that it will take place. So this is the case here, and this is he says basically there will be no giving birth in paradise. The reason he will mention about 10 or more reasons, so I'll just skim through them also. And this we will see how the scholars they combine between the different meanings, right? Which seemingly at the first glance they might seem there is a conflict between the narrations, but not necessarily so, right? Although as I mentioned to you, now we mentioned that Sheikh Al-Albani authenticated the first one, that if the believer wants it, he will have it in a short period of time, right? But then there is this other narration which has some weakness in it, but then some scholars prefer it. So how do we understand both? One of the ways is this, that narration which says that the believer will have a child, it says if he desired a child, and not necessarily that he will actually desire a child. So there is no conflict. So if it says in the other narration, if we take it to be authentic, which it is not, but if we take it that there is no childbearing in paradise, then there is no childbearing, and that one which says there is, then it only says if then, and that if might not happen, right? But here he says that this is how he takes it, that there will be no childbearing in paradise. The reasons: number one, this second hadith Abi Razin, which says there is no giving birth. Second, the ayah which says they have wives that are mutahhara, purified. And this has passed, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 25. They explained it as they are free from menses, they are free from postpartum bleeding, they are free from any type of harm, right? And some of the explainers, they said free from, that they are purified, meaning free from childbearing, free from mensing, right? And so on and so forth. Third, the narration that has passed, which we said it's not that strong, from the previous chapter, which says there is no semen and no death, right? So this adds to that there is no semen, then the child is created from the semen. So no semen, then no child. Fourth, what has been established in the Sahih, and this is in Bukhari and Muslim, and this hadith has passed, that لا يزال في الجنة فضل حتى ينشئ الله لها خلقا فيسكنهم فضل الجنة. The paradise is filled with the people of paradise, and there is still room for more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as in this hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, Allah creates a creation for it in order to make them dwell the extra room that is left in paradise, right? So he says, how does he use it? He says, if there is in paradise childbearing, then those children, they should be the ones who dwell in this extra space that is left from paradise, rather than creating a new creation in order to put them in that space, right? If there is childbearing, then that's what it should be. They are the ones who should be taking this extra space. Number 5, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made pregnancy, giving birth, come along with menses, the period, and the semen. So if the women of paradise will get pregnant, then these things will remain there. And we know that they are not there. No ejaculation, inzal, and no hayd, no menses. Number 6, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined mating in this worldly life because He destined death. And the people come out of this worldly life generation after generation. They die, and everybody knows that. People die in this life. He has an appointed term for them to live. So were it not for this mating and bringing of childbearing, tanasul, right, then the humankind will finish, will end. This is why the angels, he says, there is no mating for the angels, right? فإنهم لا يموتون, because they do not die, right? كما يموت الإنس والجن, like the humans and jinnis die. So when the day of judgment comes, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will bring the humans from the earth and He will start their creation again so that they will remain forever. They will not die, right? So then they will not need mating and having children, childbearing, right? To protect, to preserve the humankind. There is no need, because this second type of resurrection, yani creating them once again, is meant to be everlasting, to be perpetual. So then the point is, people of paradise don't need this mating and childbearing anyways. Also the people of the fire, they don't need that. Point number 7, the ayah from Surah At-Tur, ayah number 21, which says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ. Those who believed and their children followed them with faith. أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ. We made them be with their descendants. فأخبر سبحانه أنه يكرمهم بإلحاق ذرياتهم الذين كانوا لهم في الدنيا. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed that He will honor them by having their descendants, their children in this dunya. He will have them with them. You know, the father may be in a higher position than his children, or the opposite, the children more pious than the father and the mother, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise the one of the lower status to be with the one of the higher status. Why? As an honor for the one who's in the higher status, right? So their children, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make them be with them, right? What does this have to do with our topic here? So he says, وَلَوْ كَانَ يُنْشِئُ لَهُمْ فِي الْجَنَّةِ ذُرِّيَّةً أُخْرَى لَذَكَرَهُمْ. If Allah would create for them in paradise descendants and children other than what they had in this worldly life, then He would have mentioned them, like He mentioned their descendants, their children, who were with them in this worldly life. لأن قرة أعينهم كانت تكون بهم كما هي بذريات من أهل الدنيا. Because the satisfaction, the comfort of their eyes would be that their children be with them, right? Their children from paradise, if there are children. Like it is, yani they will have satisfaction having their children from this worldly life, right? So once again, the children may not be as pious, but they will be raised up to a higher level so that the parents will be satisfied and will be happy, right? So if there were children that were born in paradise, that they will be mentioned here, right? But they are not mentioned. Number 8, right? He says that this mating and having children and descendants, right? Either it will be continuous and go on without end in paradise, or it will have a specific, target, and then it will end after that. Both, he says, we shouldn't. It's not suitable to take these positions for what happens in paradise. So, if they give birth to children, this will go on every time they bring more children, more children, more children, or what? Or we say no, put a cap on that. Have this many children and then no children after. Both are not, limitations that are not suitable to happen in paradise. So he's once again saying there should be no children there. Number 9, أن الجنة لا ينمو فيها الإنسان كما ينمو في الدنيا. Paradise, the human will not grow in it like he grows in this worldly life. فلا ولدان أهلها ينمون ويكبرون ولا الرجال ينمون كما تقدم. No, neither the boys, the servants in paradise, will grow up, nor the men will grow, the women will grow up. Rather, they will remain in the same age. They don't change. So, like, how is it that we will have a baby and then he will grow? But that's out, not like the rest of the dwellers of paradise. Number 10, أن الله سبحانه وتعالى ينشئ أهل الجنة نشأة الملائكة وأكمل من نشأتهم. Allah will create the people of paradise a creation like the creation of the angels, or even more perfect than the angels. In a way, as we heard, they will not urinate, they will not defecate, they will not sleep, and they are inspired to say Subhanallah. And they will never grow old and senile, although time goes again up, continuously. على تطور الأحقاب, no matter how many centuries pass, they will not grow old. And also their bodies, they will not grow, but that amount or that build that they are built upon, 60 arm spans and what you heard before, that will remain the same, and Allah knows best. Right? So he mentioned 10 points now, supporting that there will be no childbearing. Then he mentions from Imam al-Hakim, from Al-Ustadh Abu Sahl, he said, أهل الزيغ ينكرون هذا الحديث, حديث الولادة في الجنة. He said that the people of deviation, they are the ones who deny the hadith of childbearing in paradise. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Surah Az-Zukhruf 71, وَفِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِيهِ الْأَنفُسُ وَتَلَذُّ الْأَعْيُنُ. In it, what the eyes desire and the souls desire and the eyes enjoy, right? So ليس بالمستحيل أن يشتهي المؤمن. It's not impossible that the believer will desire to have a child. ثمرة فؤاد, the fruit of his heart. The child is the fruit of his heart. Like they say in English, the apple of the eye. They say ثمرة فؤاد, the fruit of his heart, right? His heart of hearts. The children are the heart of hearts for the parents. So if it was said then in the hadith that they have no period, they don't have postpartum bleeding, so how you have a child then? The answer is that this mensing, or the period, menstruating or menstruation, is the reason for childbearing, that is linked to pregnancy and delivery, right? And the rest of the enjoyments of this worldly life, whether food or drink or clothing, all of these enjoyments in the worldly life, it is linked to tiredness and difficulty and going through some hardship, ta'ab wa nasab, right? and whatever results from that, from the things that everyone is cautious from, and sometimes they fear. You know how many people, they don't want to have children, they are afraid how to raise them, they are afraid how to pay, and so on and so forth, right? Yani especially the non-believers, they fall into this a lot. And he said, here you have the khamr of the alcohol of this dunya, which is prohibited, right? Which is responsible for every calamity. Al-mas'ula an kulli baliya. Khamr is responsible for every calamity. Allah Azza wa Jal prepared it in paradise. Less منزوعة البلية, less this trouble that it has, right? موفرة اللذة, with complete enjoyment. You enjoy khamr in paradise. So why is it that you cannot have the same for a childbearing? What's wrong with that? You can have a child without the difficulties and the menstruation and the problems of this worldly life. So that's the statement of Abu Sahl that Imam al-Hakim reported. Now, Imam al-Qayyim, he comments, he says, those who negated childbearing in paradise, they did not negate that because of a deviance within their hearts, but because of this hadith of Abi Razin, which says there is no childbearing there, which is, once again, I remind that this is a not authentic hadith, a weak hadith, right? وقد حكينا قول عطاء, we mentioned the statement of those tabi'een, Ata and other than him, that they are, the women of paradise, they are purified from mensing and from childbearing. And the other narration, which we said it's a weak one, there is no semen and no death, la mani wa la maniya, right? And he goes on, he repeats once again the issue of the hadith of Abi Razin, that there is no childbearing there, which we mentioned it's a weak narration. So he said, if you say that there is no childbearing, then we understand it to mean that no childbearing like the childbearing in this worldly life that goes through the hardship and the problems. And so if we say there is childbearing, then we will say there is childbearing in paradise, but without the problems and the difficulties and the hardship of the childbearing that happens in this worldly life. For the child, as was mentioned, within a period of time, he will be born and then he will grow fast in paradise. That is the case. So this is how he understands those, and he says, هذا ما انتهى إليه علمنا القاصر في المسألة. This is the knowledge that I have, which is deficient. This is how much I can reach, right? So this is what Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, and those issues that are like this, where you have difference in authentication of the hadith, and maybe some scholars will view both narrations to be weak. One of them will view this one to be weaker than the other one, and the other one will view the other one to be weaker than the first one. There shouldn't be like the big fighting and the labeling that this one is a deviant and this one is this and this one is that. It shouldn't reach that. And those issues, as you can see here, are happening long time ago, right? And sometimes it is due to someone viewing it too, like there is a hadith and he believes that hadith is authentic, and therefore those who go against it, they are deviants. But then the problem is the others, they don't view that hadith to be as authentic as he does, right? And that's where the difference happens. So there should be a room for respect, a room for respecting this type of differing that is not based on following desires, but rather is based upon the knowledge and the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted the human being, which the people differ in that a lot. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَنْ نَشَاءُ, we raise whomever we wish in levels and degrees. يعني in terms of knowledge. وفوق كل ذي علم عليم. And above every knowledgeable person there is someone who is more knowledgeable, and Allah knows best. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا. We just call the adhan and إقامة right away. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.